presentation, 5-minute discussion. Mr. Jonathan Raymond.
So as we've done in the past, I'll just entertain any questions from board members.
Do we have any public comment? Okay, no public comment. So we've got Vice President Cunha that is moving from conference to action. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Member Terry. So all in favor of moving from conference to action?
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. So now we are in action. Take a motion. Thank you.
Second.
I have a first by Cunha and a second by Vice President Wu. And all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed and abstentions. The ayes have it. You have an approved OE1, Superintendent. Item 10.3, proposed revisions to the Board Policy 9270, Conflict of Interest. It is a conference item, 5-minute presentation and 15-minute discussion. Ms. Susan Pointer.
Good evening, Board President Rodriguez, board members, and Superintendent Raymond. Item number 10.3 before you tonight is the proposed revision to Board Bylaw 9270, which is the district's Conflict of Interest Code. A separate red line version has been provided to you because an incorrect version was inadvertently provided in the board packet. The Political Reform Act requires every local government agency to review its Conflict of Interest Code biennially in even-numbered years, and this is our biennial review. These proposed changes are the result of review and input by Cabinet, staff, community groups, and legal counsel. As you can see, there are wording revisions, format changes, including changing how Category 2 designated filers are listed, and the deletion and addition of designated filers in Category 2. The deletion and addition of these positions is a result of the district having made changes to its organizational structure that included updating and revising position descriptions, eliminating and/or reclassifying positions. Positions identified in the district's Conflict of Interest Code generally make or participate in making decisions such as voting on matters, negotiating contracts, or making recommendations on purchases without substantive review, and are required to disclose assets and income which may be materially affected by their official actions. After receiving input from you and the community tonight, the most final version will be presented as an action item at the December 6th board meeting. After adoption of the revised Conflict of Interest Code, it will be presented to our code reviewing body, which is the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors, for approval by that board. This must be completed by December 30th of this year. I'm available to answer any questions and receive your suggestions.
Thank you. I have Vice President Wu.
Thank you, President Rodriguez. But for the next agenda item, I would not have thought of this, but if you will turn to the second page, please. First paragraph with all the red lines.
Yes?
Third to the last line of red lines. A newly elected board member or newly hired employee in a designated position shall within 30 days file an assuming office statement covering 12 months prior, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
The next agenda item we're taking up is a new board member, the possibility of a new board member who's not elected.
Mm-hmm.
So should we include in that language then, a newly elected or appointed board member?
We could do that. I think that would be fine.
I wouldn't have thought of it otherwise.
All right.
Hey, I have no other. Do you have something? Okay. I have no other questions up here. That was a wonderful recommendation. And so I think that's it. It is a conference item, so we'll bring
you.
it back on December 6th. See you back. Thanks. Item 10.4, the board appointment for trustee Area 1, report of ad hoc committee board members regarding eligible applicants and next steps by board for appointment. It's a conference action item, 5-minute presentation, and a 20-minute discussion. So we have, I would assume the presentation would be by our 2 ad hoc committee members. So it's going to be either Kennedy or Vice President Cunyo.
Yeah, thanks. We worked that one out earlier, didn't we? The committee did meet today, and we went over all of the, as directed by the board, and to fulfill the ed code, we went over all of the 8 applications and the questionnaires in order to send them forward. What we found, and it will require further verification because of subject to verification, the disqualified, whether or not they're disqualified by constitutional or law from holding civil office, that needs to be further verified. There was one particular application by Ms. Samara Palco in which we did determine that she was in fact a resident of Area 2, and we confirmed that with the county registrar's office. So we wanted to report out with that, but I do believe that that the direction of the board was that all would be going. Vice President Cunyo, will you verify this? That after the work of the committee was that, regardless of what was found, that everything would go forward. Yes.
And we have public comment on this?
We do. Public comment from Amy Kraus.
Sorry. Thank you. Again, my name is Amy Kraus. I'm a parent of a child at Crocker Riverside Elementary. Crocker Riverside just wanted to provide some input as you consider the appointment of the new Area 1 school board member. We want to thank Ms. Bell first for her years of service, I should say, before we go on. But we have provided a letter that we submitted, and I'm not going to reread it for you, but the primary points are a commitment to community engagement, communication is very important for us, and obviously budgeting issues. So we're happy to submit our letter, and if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you much. Okay. We'll take a board member discussion at this time. Vice President Cunyo.
I don't know what the pleasure of the board is. There, on the one issue of, there was, I believe, a request by a public member to post the applications onto the website. I have no problem doing that. I don't know if other board members see any issues.
Okay, I believe that was part of our process.
Oh, was
Yes.
I apologize.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Vice President Wu.
Thank you, President Rodriguez. I don't know, at the last board meeting, we discussed the possibility of bringing forth the applicants then before us to be able to field questions that we might have and questions that we might have. Superintendent, do you have a sense as to the amount of items that will be on the agenda for December, what is it, 6th?
So we do have the next data presentation for elementary schools. So you got a taste of that tonight. You know, I mean, it's a full, and I mean, to be fair, and I think echoing the Vice President Cunyo, you know, we need to focus on this. So that's going to be the main part of the agenda for that next meeting in December 6th, at least what I'll be proposing to the executive committee.
Okay, thank you. And so given that, and I think that depending upon whether we have 7 or 8 candidates, and let's say that even at 15 minutes a candidate with presentation and questions and answers, we could be very well looking at over 2 hours. And my thought then is that would it be appropriate that we call a special meeting? Possibly, I appreciate that Thanksgiving is around the corner, and also that CSBA is around the corner, but I think CSBA does not start until Wednesday, the 28th, and I was wondering maybe around the 26th or 27th?
Member Wu, just because my
comment.
comment was specifically to what you're suggesting right now, and I just want to have it as part of what you're suggesting.
Okay.
And while I would
Member
love
Terry.
to participate in this conversation and be a part of the panel and ask questions, I think it's imperative that you have my replacement seated and a participant of these discussions. So holding it before December 6th, or before our December 6th meeting, I think would be unwise.
And
As
so-
much, and again, as much as I would love to participate in it, I think that my replacement should be sitting here and engaged in that conversation. So my original suggestion that I was going to make was, if you were going to hold it on the December 6th meeting, that you hold it after you've sworn in my replacement for my seat.
So does your replacement sit on December 6th? then?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Is effective to.
So I was going to say that any pertinent votes and things like that should be taking place after my replacement has been seated. So if you're going to have those discussions, I was going to say have it in the agenda after my departure.
I got it.
So if you're going to hold a special meeting, I would suggest holding it post December 6th.
I appreciate your comment.
So,
Thank you.
and that's just my 2 cents, but I would think that the person who's going to be here for the next 4 years should
Well, what-
have more of a hand in it than the person who's going to be here for the next 10 days.
Whatever the date we decide to calendar, I still think the suggestion should be that we might consider a special
I
meeting.
would agree. I just wanted to make sure that we took into account that
Yeah.
somebody else is going to be sitting in my seat
Good
pretty
point.
soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Arroyo.
Simple question. The decision needs to be made by what date?
I believe it was the 26th.
December 20th is your last board meeting. I suggest the appointment be made then, at that board meeting.
Can I make a point of clarification? The actual resignation date is December 28th, if I'm
I
not.
think it's December 23rd.
Okay. I knew it wasn't.
And so I think that we can dialogue a little bit more about how we can move forward past the 6th on any potential special meeting or any follow-up prior to the 20th, when we have the deadline to make the decision.
Certainly, it would be prudent to have the new, newly seated board member part of this decision, and I really thank you very much for bringing that up, Member Terry. Yeah, yes. Are there any other board member? Yes, Vice President Cunha.
Along the lines of Vice President Wu, we could ask half one night, half another night. I mean, we could do half on the 6th, half on the 7th, or half on the 6th and half on the Tuesday after, something of that nature. Just throwing something out.
Well, I mean, and may I?
Yeah.
Respond? And in all fairness to staff, I mean, we really should be focusing on the next presentation on the 6th, and I'd like our attention to be focused on that, because that's also very important work, and you can certainly tell that they put a lot of effort into it,
All right,
so.
I respect that. That makes sense. Okay. Would you just want to pick a date after the 6th then?
Sure.
Okay.
I just want to let the board know that I'd love to be part of the discussion, and I'm scheduled to be out of town for work reasons on the week of December 10th. So if it is December, it would be nice to do a special board meeting on the 7th or the week after the 10th.
Friday? Pearl Harbor Day? I'm game for that.
December 7th, is that an okay date to everyone? Is that agreeable? Is it her birthday? Oh, okay.
It's a little homicide.
Oh, it's 2 nights in a row. It's okay. Yes, for those of us who have families, I can empathize with that, 2 nights in a row.
President,
yes.
President Rodriguez, I think that a meeting just for that will probably be shorter than this particular meeting, given the fact that we would be meeting for that and that alone. So, I mean, it would be lengthy, but we will not have any other items to distract us.
Yes.
Can I make a suggestion? people be amenable to meeting at 5:30?
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Exactly
We don't
right.
need closed session, so. yeah.
No, we don't need closed session.
And that would give people enough time to get off work and make their way over.
Let's work.
So you guys want to do the 7th or the 17th?
7, I believe. Let's see here. How much interest is there to go on the 7th?
I'd rather do the 7th.
7.
Can I ask a further question?
Sure.
So, as far as we can tell, the process will include bringing the applicants, doing the interview process, whatever we determined, and then giving us the time to then go in closed session, or not in closed session, sorry, but I mean, to deliberate and make the appointment that day, or
No.
come to a conclusion?
No, we would install them or swear them in, whoever the candidate appointee is, on December 20th.
My point, what would be the items of discussion on the 7th, per se? I mean, what's the agenda? So they come, they give us a presentation, we ask them questions.
Yes.
When do we collectively decide who to appoint? That night?
Good question.
If I may.
Let's see what Member Kennedy has to
Yeah,
offer.
the way, all right, so on the 7th, yes, they give a presentation of whatever time we say, 10, 15 minutes, whatever. We have an opportunity to interview them, is what we said, very publicly. Then we have two choices, the way I see it. We can come back for on the 20th. We can come back and actually take a vote, or could be several votes, but decide at that time. We could even, if we found necessary, bring back, if decide at the meeting on the 7th to bring back to finalists, or, I mean, those are two options. I mean, we're making sausage up here now.
No, I get it. And that's the reason why we're discussing this, right?
Right.
And I'm just posing questions, and I think this is the time to do it. The only question then lingering then for me is, at what point are we open to hear from the community or community members that want to speak, either on behalf or once they've heard what other applicants have to say, or all of them, if they have any comments, if they have any suggestions?
That would be on December 7th.
Well, actually, since it'd be on the agenda, it would be both meetings.
Both meetings, yeah. It
right.
would be actually, but it would be
Well,
December 7th.
not both meetings if we make the determination on the 7th as to who we're going to appoint, and if they have no time to chime in, if they've never heard. So we have 2 hours of witness, or I mean, of applicants, questions. We are satisfied on what we wanted to know. With the community or people in the public have an opportunity to chime in so that we can hear what they have to say.
That would be on the 7th.
Post the interview section.
Yeah, because we have public comment that would take place as well, as like any other agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah, and public comment is also going to be offered on the 20th. So, I think legal counsel, is it appropriate to go into closed session if the board needs to deliberate? Or does that all
No.
have to happen in
No.
open session?
All open.
Okay,
all
so
open.
there is, okay,
And you're correct that there is public comment, even on the specific item in the special meeting, but only on that item. The board member would not be, even if sworn in, would not take office until Board Member Bell terms out. So if you make the appointment on the 7th and swear them in, they couldn't take office until the end of her resignation day, which is, I think, the 23rd
Oh,
of
okay.
December.
So they wouldn't get sworn in on the 20th, and they would get sworn in the next meeting over?
They could be appointed and sworn in on the 20th. They take office on the 23rd, I believe.
Oh, I see, okay. Sure.
You could do it ahead of time. It's just that it won't be effective until her resignation terms out.
Okay. Vice President Cunha.
So a couple things. I would probably suggest a two-step process where we hear from everyone. We choose 2 or 3 out of the pool of 8 to come back on the second meeting. Issues that I see outstanding are threefold. What's going to be the order? Given the fact that questions will be asked, one could say, or someone has said to me, that people sitting in the back listening to all the questions might have a time to think about them in a little more detail than the first person who gets to get thrown into the fire. The second thing, are we going to limit the subject matter of the questions? Or are we just going to allow each board member to ask what he or she feels is pertinent to them? And third, what's going to be the time for each person to speak? How much time do we want to give them? So I see those as three, from the candidate's perspective, three things that we need to talk about.
Is there any recommendations? Member Kennedy?
As far as the fairness issue, I've thought of that as well. I think that one way of doing it would be to draw numbers randomly and apply those numbers, and then they could have the questions rotate. And you understand what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, and then, let's say that number 2 through 8, and then number 1 goes, and then you rotate the questions so that the person who took the first question wouldn't take the second question first, would take it last, and that type of thing. It rotates around. It's a very
I mean,
visual person. I need a whiteboard.
That makes sense.
well, he's still
Hold on.
asking.
Wait
that.
to
Sorry.
be spoken.
Sorry.
Yes. Member
So the only question that comes to my mind then is, are we going to have 5 questions to ask, or are we going to let board members just kind of
Oh, I see.
fire
what you're
away?
saying. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So
I haven't really given it. I just kind of assume that we would just let board members ask questions, but I'm fine to have the conversation if we think it's more fair to have a set of pre-designated questions. But then we have to come up with it up here because we can't talk to each other outside of here.
Member Arroyo?
I'm still kind of deciphering in my head a more clear, detailed process, because these questions are extremely valid. And what I was going to say for Member Kennedy is, even if we rotate the questions, the first person still gets to answer them in a different order than the second, because they're going to get the same amount of questions, right? So regardless if you get them first or last, the second person is going to get them the same ones, right? Is that not what you were saying?
No.
I'm not articulating myself.
I have Member Terry's light on.
Yeah.
In light of the hour and the fact that this doesn't seem to be going very well to coming to consensus, I would suggest having the executive committee draw up a format that can be put onto the agenda for the special meeting. Because ultimately, on the 6th, you're going to pick new leadership, but this is going to have to be agendized before new leadership is voted on. So as the one guy who won't be in the room, I would tell you, have the executive committee try to draw up a format of how that would work. And I think 3 people discussing it is going to be easier to come to consensus than 6 people discussing it.
Vice President Cunha, thank you.
I mean, I think that sounds like a good idea. I just had a question for legal counsel. Do the same time constraints for notice apply to that special meeting as well?
Yes, 24 hours.
Okay, but we would want to give these people more than 24 hours to know the order. So can we do that, though?
You can do it now. You could agree to set a special board meeting at a particular time on December 7th. That'll give plenty of notice to these candidates of what period of time you're talking about. And as to who you're going to contact, if you're going to do it, all of them, then you would have all of them here and you draw their names maybe by lot.
And then if we were going to decide, order, content of questions, all those things at executive, could we, once we decide that at executive, could we immediately disperse that publicly?
Well, but who's approved it? The whole board has to approve this process.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
then
so
the issue is, if you want to do it that way, you could have an executive board meeting, delegate to them the process, notify the candidates, notify them regarding the questions, but you can't have a discussion among the majority of you. That means you are delegating that to the executive committee. If you want to do that, that's fine, because that doesn't get into the substantive issue of the appointment. I would suggest that executive committee may be open.
well, yeah, it could be open. if I can make a recommendation, I like the drawing numbers random for the presenters to come in at random. A 15-minute presentation, you think by each person would be suffice, or 10-minute? 15? What's the pleasure of the board? 15 minutes? So,
I would, can I suggest something? I would suggest a 5-minute, we're going to have all these answers, so I would suggest a 5-minute presentation, 10-minute question.
okay.
Let them speak to us about what they stand for in 5 minutes, and
Right.
because we have more detail here, and then we
Yes.
can ask questions.
Can I chime in?
Yes,
I-
Member Royal.
I would say 3-minute presentation, which is pretty ample, 10-minute questions, and then a 2-minute closing statement for them to wrap up whatever final thoughts they really wanted to put together for the,
I don't know.
it's still the 15 minutes.
Wow. Okay, Vice President Wu.
In suggesting a time limit for each of the applicants, let me suggest also that we limit ourselves to no more than a fixed amount of time for questions, be it a minute or 2 minutes. That way, we can be fair, equitable to each other as well as to the candidates.
Vice President Wu, can I add to that? My suggestion would be that, given the fact that it would be 6 members, that we give ourselves limit ourselves to you have your one question to ask with no rebuttal, right? Where you cannot keep on digging in. You ask the question, you let them answer it, and then in your mind, you figure out if they answer your question or not. And them avoiding the question will tell you probably that's not the person you want to support. If they truly answer your question, then they will probably do themselves a favor by garnering the support of the member that asked the question, right? Because then that would give one question that will be at least 6 questions, right, that can be asked, 1 per board member.
7 questions.
6 of us.
Ellen's not going to be part of the process?
Well, there could be
what was she?
7.
7 board members,
Yes.
She just can't vote.
still here.
Yes, Board Member
Oh.
Bell can
Yeah.
participate. She
Oh, I
just
see.
can't vote on the appointment.
Okay, well, that will be 7, given the person a couple of minutes, at least a minute to 2 minutes to answer the question.
Member Kennedy.
No, I was just thinking, the way attorneys do depositions, I think this is going to be a little longer than
15
asking
minutes.
questions, 10 minutes.
Yes. I don't, it's being too compartmentalized and structured now. I like the 2-minute opening statement, 2-minute closing statement. And if each board member can limit their questions. I don't want to put questions out in advance that we're going to ask, because I want each board member to be open to asking one specific question of the candidate that's coming forward, depending on what their presentation is and the materials in which was read. And I believe the reason why we had a very thoughtful conversation about these questions, Member Arroyo, for the applications. And so, and it just briefly looking at the applications that have come in, I feel like they've been answered. So reading the materials, doing the presentation, offering an opportunity for the candidate to do a presentation, limiting that to a 5-minute total, but answering 7 board member questions is going to take some time unless we put a time limit on their response. So it's like, when you respond, you have 2 minutes to respond to each board member question. That would take 14 minutes in and of itself just to answer questions.
Patrick had a suggestion.
Well, then the question is, who asks who and, when? So either a suggestion, and then I have to apologize to the people that are listening to this. This is the one and only time we have as a board to get together to decipher this. We have no time before, and by law, we can't even talk afterwards. So you have to bear with us on this. if we will be doing selection of people to come just by random selection, can we limit, say, board members, 3 board members by random selection, or 4 members, you know? Like,
Everyone should have a chance.
No.
well, then we need to up the time then.
Well, yeah, we could do that. This is our process. We own it. So if that's a recommendation, we can certainly do that. But Member Kennedy has some thoughts.
I'd rather err on too much time, frankly. This is an
Okay.
important decision and, you know, so.
I agree.
And if we were to do a 2-minute opening, 3 minutes questions per, and then 2-minute closing, you know, and if the time wasn't taken per member, if the time wasn't taken, you know, fine, but, you know, that's 21, 22, 23, 24, you know, so I mean, I don't care if this takes a few hours. This is an important decision, and the people of District, or Trust Area 1 deserve it, so.
Concur?
So the agreements here that we have, 3 minutes for an opening presentation, 2 minutes for a closing statement. We have 7 board members that will be asking questions, follow-up questions. A question, a follow-up, 1 follow-up question.
Oh, 8 question, and they have 3 minutes to do follow-ups within that,
3-minute
right?
question and answer period. How about
Yeah,
Per board member.
per board member.
Uh-huh.
If you can fit 30 questions, you know, within like yes, no, maybe. If it's 1, that it's more elaborate, so be it, right?
Alrighty, so we have drawing numbers at random for the presentation. We have 3-minute opening, 2-minute closing. Each board member asks 1 follow-up question to their opening statement, and each candidate has 3 minutes in which to respond to each board member's question.
No, I think it's, each board member has a 3-minute period to ask questions and for the applicant to
It could be
respond.
1 question, it could be 2, but you got 3 minutes.
Okay, you just want to limit it to just 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, because we don't want to say 1 question and then take 5 minutes answering that 1 question, right?
okay, so each board member has 3 minutes of a Q&A.
Up to 3 minutes, yes.
Alrighty. And we're going to draw numbers. Is there anything else that we need to include in this process?
I think you're looking at minimum of 26 minutes. I think you can round it to a half an hour by the time they walk to the podium and little slippage.
Perfect.
Be a little over 3 hours. Okay. It's going to be on the 7th. And well, I guess I'd move to what we've agreed on tonight to be posted onto our website forthwith. And and send to each candidate.
I
No?
think there's, Board Member, President Rodriguez, if I may. I think that the time, what will be done during the meeting, it's clear. It's there's another item I think that it's pending, which is, do we pin ourselves to make a decision that day of, or do we give us the freedom to either make the decision then, or allow us to postpone that decision for the 20th, given the fact that we may need to narrow it down. We don't have to box ourselves in, but it would be clear to not be clear.
Great suggestion. What is the pleasure of the board? Do we narrow the group down to a few and then do on the 20th, appoint 1 of the narrowed down group? Member Kennedy.
I'll bifurcate the question, take the second part first, and that's that I think that we should be committed to make the decision on the 20th and not on the first day. For one thing, we're going to be a little tired, and, having a little rest on it would be probably a good thing and let things soak in a bit. So I would say that we don't make the decision at the meeting where we do the interview process. Whether or not we narrow it down and then take further questions of finalists, I mean, we can always decide that night and narrow it down.
And that's what I was wanting to make sure that we were clear, that we allow ourselves that discretion.
I think that we should allow ourselves that discretion.
I totally agree with you. I just wanted to make sure that we spelled it out so that there were no ambiguities about that. Okay. I
So let
think
me,
so.
let me go over what we've just agreed to. So we agreed that we're going to draw numbers for presentation at random for the candidates. They are going to have a 3-minute opening presentation, a 2-minute closing statement. Each board member gets up to 3 minutes of Q&A, and we will narrow down the pool of candidates. The question is, if we narrow down the pool of candidates, do we want to put a specific number on it, or do we want to leave it open for that night?
I would just say that we've committed ourselves to a vote on December 20th, and that in our discretion on the 7th, we can narrow it down, but we're not bound at this point.
Okay. Possible.
No need to spell out that we are narrowing down.
Okay.
We may not even need to.
All righty.
Yeah.
And we will post this onto the web, post this process onto the web. And we are in conference right now, so I'll take a motion to move from conference to action.
Move from conference to action. Second.
Thank you. I have a first by Member Kennedy, a second by Vice President Wu to move from conference to action. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed and abstentions? The ayes have it. We are now into action, and I have a first.
I have one
Okay.
question.
I have a
I
question.
just want to ensure that legal counsel is going to do the requisite background checks for the 7th, in regard to the
I haven't been
felony.
directed to do that.
yeah, well, we
You
can-
might want to do those background checks between your interviews on the 7th and the 20th if you're going to be eliminating some. But if you're directing
I'd
that
rather
we
do it
do it
before.
now, we
I'd
can
rather
do it
front
now.
load that. I'd rather, if someone is disqualified, I'd rather them not present
Then we gain 30 minutes.
themselves.
No, that's fine.
Can
They're
that be
going to
done?
have to give some consent as well, for background checks.
Oh,
Okay,
Yeah.
is that possible though?
Yes, we can ask them for that consent.
Okay.
And I don't know if you set a time for December 7th for your special board meeting. I didn't hear that. You might want to give them at least a little advance notice of when you're meeting on December 7th.
I believe everyone had agreed to 5:30 on the 7th.
Okay.
I would just amend the motion on the table to include the 5:30 meeting start and to ask and authorize legal counsel to do requisite background checks on all of the candidates.
Second.
All of the qualified candidates? There was one that was eliminated.
All of the qualified candidates.
So I have a first by Vice President Cunha and a second by Member Kennedy. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And abstentions? The ayes have it. We
I-
have a process vote.
I think on that evening that we all should be especially kind to Board Member Yi, who's going to be running the clock. Good luck with that one.
Yes, thank you very much in advance. We just moved the item. We went from conference to action. Oh, sorry. We had we have moved it from conference to action. I'm sorry about that, but we did. Okay. And now we're at 11.0, business and financial information reports. We're just receiving information, a cash flow report and the investment report. Moving on to our future board meetings, 12.0, December 6th, closed session is at 4:30, open session at 6:30. We have now added December 7th, the 5:30 start time, and December 20th, 4:30 closed session, 6:30 open session, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn at this time. Okay, so we have Member Terry, and it is supported by Vice President Wu. All in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? The ayes have it. We're adjourned.
Oh, cool, you're gaining weight.
Meet the criteria?
It started with an S, Samara Palco. Yeah. I heard that, but I wasn't sure. Samara Palco.